AMD has a genius strategy to finally win in the high end with RX 10000. But before I get to that, the death of optimization is here, and PC gamers' ultimate problem has been solved. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, the death of optimization in games looks to be here. When DLSS and FSR first came to the market, it was marketed as a way to get more out of your games. Sure, you're losing some graphics fidelity with the introduction of new artifacts, frame pacing, as well as some other problems, but you don't have to use it. It's just for squeezing more performance out of lower-end cards or getting some wild ultra-high frame rates. Then, when FrameGen came along, we were promised more of the same, and that likely was the plan. Unfortunately, game developers and publishers seem to look at it very differently. As more and more games release, it's becoming clear that they're likely using the tech as a crutch to avoid optimizing the game better. And the perfect example of this just dropped with Borderlands 4. As you can see in this trailer, it says DLSS 4 with multi-FrameGen is coming to Borderlands 4. But when we actually watch it, well, you'll notice that the FPS is around 260, 270, hold on, it gets even worse, 230 to 212 FPS. That's really bad, because as the example here claims, if we're looking at around 260 FPS with DLSS 4's 4x FrameGen, the actual FPS is around 65. And you'd better believe that NVIDIA is using an RTX 5090 for this example. I mean, it's on their YouTube channel. And that of course means some pretty terrible latency, because the latency doesn't go down with FrameGen. In fact, it goes up a bit, making it worse than regular 65 FPS. Though there are things like Reflex 2 to help with that. But essentially, this is going to be a massively demanding game. And yet, it barely looks any better than Borderlands 3. Now, that's likely partially because of the art style, but if anything, this would prove that they don't need to add ray tracing or anything like that. But also, it definitely looks like the developers didn't care at all about optimizing it. And that actually makes sense given their incentives. Where used to, if a game ran at 20 FPS, developers were forced to make changes so it ran better. Now, they can just slap on upscaling and FrameGen and call it a day, saving millions in the process. But it's reaching a point of critical mass. When a game like Borderlands barely looks any better, yet stalls out a $1,000 plus GPU, gamers will start pushing back. And given the comments, that definitely looks to be happening. Hold on. Okay. 440 pounds is what FlexiSpot's E7 Pro sit-stand desk can hold. It's basically a tank. And while I've had this one for years at this point, I still remember the first day I got it. Just the fact that it was so heavy duty. You could just tell. And it's no wonder. The E7 Pro is rated for 30,000 plus lifts, dual motors, and a whopping 15-year warranty. It's pretty much become the gold standard of sit-stand desks. And it's been my daily driver in nearly all of my videos for a reason. It's just unbelievably sturdy. And at the same time, it's so smooth that I can use it for B-roll movement. Now, if you don't like the wood look, don't worry. FlexiSpot has a ton of options for different colors and materials for the desktop. And the best part is that it's FlexiSpot's 9th anniversary sales event, where you can get up to 65% off and a chance to win free orders. And when you use my code here, you'll get an extra $50 off the E7 Plus, Pro, and E7L standing desks. Or use this code for an extra $30 off the regular E7. And finally, you've got to check out their awesome C7 Max ergonomic chair. It's on another level of comfort. There's a reason I use it in every one of my videos. And use this code for an extra $30 off their C7. Check those links out in the description below. And next up for today, a few videos back, I covered a story that ultimately comes from the Board Channel's forum on ChipL, which is ultimately a forum for board partners to discuss products. So there's a lot of great leaks that come from that. This time, as you can see, it claimed NVIDIA and its board partners are reportedly set to reduce RTX 5000 series GPU prices as early as this month due to, quote, low terminal sales and, quote, oversupply. Now, some of you went into the comments claiming you couldn't see the crash. Where are the lower prices? Proving that you likely didn't watch the video because, well, it obviously says right here, potentially this month, not that it's already been done. Plus, things like this take time to funnel through supply chains. Nvidia is apparently planning to release supercards this year, so there's a lot going on. Well, that video was a whopping 8 days ago, and it's already happening in multiple ways. Starting things off, for probably the first time ever since its release, NVIDIA's RTX 5070 Ti is selling at MSRP. As you can see here, it's a PNY card, and it's still at MSRP even after outlets have reported on it. To top it off, they're also including a free copy of Borderlands 4. In fact, NVIDIA is offering this deal on all of their RTX 50 series cards. Basically, things are shifting, and it gets even better when we look at the UK, as multiple RTX 50 cards across Europe have dropped by nearly 10%. Now, as they state, there has been a drop in exchange rate for the US dollar, but I'd argue that definitely isn't the whole story. For one, they didn't cut prices across the board. So if it was purely a currency value exchange, it would have affected all of the cards. And second, if the cards were selling extremely well, Nvidia wouldn't feel the need to make a change at all, much less actually change it on their site and make it official. At the end of the day, barring some big surge in demand, GPU prices seem to finally be falling. And lastly for today, as many of you know, AMD themselves have confirmed that they're planning to release their UDNA architecture for next-gen GPUs, which is set to unify their graphics architecture across consumer and commercial markets. At the time, it was odd, given AMD used to have that before they split it into RDNA and CDNA, and they made a big deal about releasing a more focused architecture. So at the time, to go back didn't make a lot of sense. But since then, this slide has leaked. And while I've gone over it in the past, it tells us something huge about how AMD is planning to tackle the high-end market next gen. And it's kind of genius, because if you remember, one of the last times AMD went hard to win in the high-end was with their Radeon R9 295X2. It was hands down the fastest GPU on the market, even sometimes beating Nvidia's $3,000 Titan card. But it had some major flaws. It was a dual GPU that relied on crossfire, so tons of problems there. It drew tons of power. Essentially, it was bad at the time. And it was a massive failure for AMD, which is likely one reason why they haven't tried all that hard since. But this chart shows how AMD plans to fix this for their 10,000 series. As you can see here, all of these GPUs are ultimately made from these two chips. So all of these lower-end chips are made from a cut-down version. And you'll notice that the highest-end chip is made for AI, yet the high-end gaming chip is made from it, which is why UDNA makes perfect sense. Essentially, if AMD's gaming card doesn't sell well, they can just up production of their AI card. But if the AI card doesn't do well, they can use it for gaming cards. Not to mention the MCM design, so they can move around chiplets to whatever is selling the most. So essentially, no matter what, AMD is guaranteeing that the 295X2 doesn't happen again. Yet at the same time, they can have something for the high end.